I'm still trying to get out there. Okay, so we have gone live. I've just letting everyone know I've changed some stream settings, so things might be different. I might sound a little bit different. Let me know if it's good or bad. We can fix everything on the fly, get everything working. And if I need to stop talking for a minute, just because I'm kind of clearing my stuff out, I'm still kind of getting over this thing. It was definitely just a head cold. I don't know. I traditionally get sick every year around this time. And here it is. I just got it. How's it going, Oracle? So I don't know exactly how it hit me, what happened. I just couldn't breathe for a solid week. But I wanted to talk about cryptocurrency, and we're here on Saturday Coffee and Crypto in the morning. So obviously Bitcoin has been on a downtrend. Now I've been out of touch, and I'm moving my lines. I've been out of touch for a couple of days. Finally kind of got my legs back last night to identify exactly what's going on. So obviously Bitcoin's gone on the downtrend after our drop down. Now the one point that I didn't talk about, and this is around the time that I started feeling sick, started getting sick, was when Bitcoin hit to $52,000 and then got rejected. It was a decision on the market to reject at 52 and then come down. So now we are in a downtrend, and we could go much lower. We could go to 42,000. Could we go lower than 42,000? I personally think if we do, it'll probably just be a peak down there, nothing crazy. So how's it going, Jared? How's it going, Brown Sugar? Is the bull run over? No, I don't think so. So let me reiterate what I'm saying, because of course everything can look pretty bearish here. I'm still prospecting that we're probably going to see a market peak into 2022. We've talked about this market sell-off on the channel. I discussed that December could be a really bad month for us. It's turning out to be a very bad month. And again, through the holidays, it could also be bad. But we still have to remember a couple of things that we do have on our side. But ultimately, none of this represents a market peak. None of it represents that drastic volatile drop or volatile upswing. So really, I do think that at this point, Bitcoin is in a safe zone between the 42,000 and 52,000 mark. And if that sounds familiar, we said that a bunch here. We said that a bunch when before Bitcoin broke the floor into the sub 42,000 area. Will we get down to the sub 42,000? I really don't think so. I really don't think so. We could. It's a possibility. But I think for the most part, we're probably going to drag along for December, probably reach down and retest that $42,000 mark, and then sometime mid 2022 we'll see a market peak. That's more like what I'm looking into. So but ultimately I'm not looking at the end of the market cycle at this point. I don't even think like Plan B and all of those people that have been saying, you know, we're going to 98K before the end of the year. I don't even think those people think that this is the end. I think there's a lot of people out there that are saying that this is the end. One being, you know, I actually am not in tune with a lot of crypto YouTubers outside of like Alex Becker and a couple of others talking about the end of the market cycle. But I'd say any analyst worth their salt knows that this market cycle is extending. And most likely is going to feed into 2022. I think there are a lot of analysts saying that. And just take crypto out of the whole equation for a second. If we look at the global financial structure, and whoops, give me 1 second here. I'm just going to move that over there so you don't get to see my sign in. There we go. If you look at the total the structure of the economy right now, what's going on in the economy, everything looks really bullish for where cryptocurrency can go because the economy isn't looking too great. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind. 100K maybe by the end of 2022. You know, it's hard to say, right? Like I personally think Bitcoin can hit a much higher amount, but I've been saying for a while that Bitcoin's most likely going to see 150K midway or even late 2022. I've even said that we could peak sometime in August or even December of 2022. It's possible that we could go on a much longer cycle. Now, the longer that we go, that typically would mean the higher the price, I would think. I would speculate at least, but to be safe, I'm probably going to say that we're going to peak somewhere in the March to May area. What does the peak look like? Well, I guess for me, I'm referencing how, say, 2017 and the other peaks worked. And by that, what I mean by that is there's a huge volatility spike over the a series of days to weeks. We're looking at the daily chart here to put that into context. We have a huge volatility spike and then a drastic drop off. Now they have gotten less exaggerated over time, right? So we see this, and this was pretty exaggerated spike, and then a drop off into the bear market. We see the same thing in 2017, pretty exaggerated pump, hit the peak, and then drop off into the bear market. Here, we kind of got that, but we're not really getting that, right? It's kind of like this weird consolidation formation at around 60K. And if you look at how, say, this market cycle compares to other market cycles, from a technical standing, it just doesn't represent the exact same. Now, I could be wrong, right? This could be the market peak if that's how you want to look at it. I mean, anything is possible, right? And I would be proven wrong if Bitcoin breaks below 42,000 and then again hits around 32,000 or even 30,000 and then sub that, right? If it goes down to close to around 20,000, we could be looking at something similar to what happened back here. Back here, obviously being the market peak, we're looking at, we are looking back here. So we're looking at the market peak here at 1295. And then the drop off from our 20K 2017, so 19K, our drop off went down all the way to 3,000. So roughly 100% more than this market peak back here. So the bear market brought it down a dramatic amount from Bitcoin being at 20K. So realistically, what we could see is roughly, I'd probably say if this is market peak here, I'd probably say 40K is a fair value. It's double, it's 100% of the value. So realistically, I guess you could in some ways kind of make it out to be a market peak, but I don't see it. I look at this as a fundamental standpoint and from a technical analysis standpoint. And in my opinion, and a lot of other analysts, say Raoul Pal, Benjamin Cohen, they're all saying that this market cycle is most likely going to extend. So I'm more basing it off of the amount of volatility, how much we're holding at these support lines, and the total what's going on in the economy. And also, if you look at the length of the market cycles, we're probably looking on par, maybe a little bit shorter than the entirety of these two cycles, peak to peak, right? I'm nervous right now because I just started investing a huge amount, and I don't know if I should be tether and cut my losses. It's really hard to say. I mean, everyone's different. I would probably say it depends more so on the projects that you're in. If you're bullish on the projects, I would stay in them. I don't think there's any reason not to. Also, you want to buy cryptocurrency when it is low. And if you're looking at Bitcoin, how much lower could it realistically go? Now, I always say the best way is the dollar cost average. That way, if it dips further down, you're ready to buy those dips and keep lowering your dollar cost average. So constantly lowering the average cost of how much you're paying for Bitcoin. I think that's important. I don't know how much I would really worry. I want to put this into context for everyone. Obviously, I've been sick for the past week, but I haven't sold any cryptocurrency. I haven't really done any dramatic moves other than gaining bonuses to have cryptocurrency deposited in certain areas. I've been putting some cryptocurrency on cold storage, more shifting around things, but I haven't sold a cryptocurrency. And I personally wouldn't while the market is down. This is probably the time just to accumulate, in my opinion. Buy some good projects that you've been looking to buy. There are still a lot of good projects coming out. There's still a lot of things happening within cryptocurrency. Say the Polkadot parachains just went live today, so we have Akala that's going to be coming out with her platform soon, and a lot of other things that are happening within the crypto space. So I think more likely is what we're going to see is this December lull play out, and then into 2022 we'll see a move upwards. So that's ultimately what I'm thinking. Raoul Pal said the same sentiment, that most likely because people look at 2017 and how it dropped right at December. So we look at this chart here. December 25th, Christmas essentially was the drop. People are going to echo that and be like, hey, the market is going to drop again because it dropped at this exact same point in 2017. If we're basing everything off of that and that plays out, if that does play out, one, you should all get really excited because that means we're all going to be rich. All you have to do is put in a bunch of money every time the market drops, and then just sit there and don't do anything for 4 years and then sell it. That's all you got to do. The reality is that's not what's going to happen. The reality is we're going to see this drop off because of everyone's emotions, because again, these charts are all emotional. We're going to see the drop off, the sell off, and then into the new year, most likely a ramp up because we still know there are supply shortages on exchanges for both Ethereum and Bitcoin. There's a huge push institutionally for Bitcoin right now. A lot of investment firms are trying to get into Bitcoin. We have the new ETFs coming out. So there's a lot of noise and a lot of things happening around Bitcoin right now that tells us fundamentally a giant drop is probably not going to come right now. A giant drop is eventually going to come. It has to come. We're eventually going to see a market peak. When that market peak is going to be is still yet to be known. I'm betting that right now this doesn't look like a market peak to me. And I know to some people it does, but I'd probably say the amount of support that we're holding represents to me that this isn't the market peak. I'd probably say that's my analysis. How's it going, Bleak? So ultimately, I don't think that there's that much to worry about. I would probably say the best thing that you can do is consolidate projects that you're not too bullish on. Relook at your portfolio and see where you want to adjust your risk. The lower risk you have, or to lower your risk, is always to buy more Bitcoin or hold in stable coins. I guess I personally wouldn't. I personally cash out everything. If I do cash out, I cash out into gold, whether that be Pax Gold or whatever different way. I don't buy paper gold on exchanges like actual regular trading exchanges. So if you're using TD Ameritrade, Questrade, or if you're in the States and using like Robinhood or something, don't buy paper gold. But I will buy Pax Gold. I'll hold it in Celsius, gain an interest on the Pax Gold, things like that. So there are ways to diminish or lower your risk by exiting some altcoins, or at least taking some from some altcoins and moving into Bitcoin, moving into stable coins, ultimately to lower your risk. But right now, I wouldn't be looking at it as, hey, we're going to go into a multi-year bear market. And even if we were going to go into a multi-year bear market, if you're just entering cryptocurrency, this is the point that you would get excited at, because hey, you get all this time to accumulate on for the next market cycle. But again, just to reiterate my thought process here, because of the levels of support that we are holding up here, and because of how much we're actually consolidating and holding up at this level, with ultimately not that much volume in terms of what's happened back here. So again, we had a wicked amount of volume after the market peak. We're not even seeing any market volume here. So with the lack of market volume, with the amount of support that we're holding at these levels, to me, it doesn't tell me that we're at the market peak. So I'd probably say this is like the best way that I can explain it. But ultimately, I could be as wrong as anyone else, right? No one here knows exactly what's going to happen. And I think a lot of theories are going to be blown out of the water in the next coming weeks. And that is probably going to be a lot of the people that said, hey, Bitcoin's going to hit 100K by the end of the year. Of course, a lot of people are just going to shift their target dates, but shifting their target dates only bolsters lengthening market cycle theory, which is most likely what we're seeing here. So again, most likely we're going to see a lengthened market cycle. And I don't think it's really going to. I think after this, people are going to be opened up in terms of what cryptocurrency is going to do. So I know that right now can be a little bit scary, can be a little bit bearish times, of course, but at the end of the day, we also have to remember that Bitcoin is at $47,000, which is nothing really to sneeze at considering where it is right now. We're about 100%, maybe 105% above well, I guess 110% above when we were back in the peak of 2017. So we're at the point where I would see this would be where we would dip to, right? So if Bitcoin hit 150K and then crashed from a market peak, I would see it drop to roughly this point, roughly the $46,000 to $42,000 mark, is where I would expect Bitcoin to land, maybe even a little bit further down at like 35,000, but no lower than that is what I would expect the market peak to drop to. And that is based on how the other market cycles have acted before. So again, like if you measure these out from peak to drop, and see the drop, roughly each of them represents 82%. And we can look at the same thing happened here in 2017. If we look at 2017, go to the ultimate drop, again, 82 to 83%. So roughly we're going to see, again, another drop roughly around the 80% mark, give or take, right? We could hold a little bit more depending on the economic status of the world, because of course, as much as technical analysis is valuable here, ultimately cryptocurrency runs to whatever the legacy markets are coming into play. Now, a big thing to keep in mind too is we have things that we're fighting against, one being the DXY. Now, why do I say this? Why do I always bring up the United States dollar? Now, I want to put in preface, you know, things like the stock market is down in general, right? The Dow was dipping over the last couple of days. We had that pump over the other day, but we've been dipping, right? So the Dow is down, S&P 500 is down, equities are slightly down. Some equities are doing fine, so it's not really that bad. The VIX is up and the DXY is up. The value of the United States dollar is right now up, and a lot of that is because of the new things coming out with the interest rates and all the adjustments and the repos that the federal government is trying to put in place to kind of rebalance the inflation that they've caused. But ultimately, we know where this inflation is going to end with the dollar. Now, the lower price of the dollar, the higher price assets are going to go. So our stock market, for example, so the Dow, for example, is doing so well. Now, could it be doing so well because the economy is doing well, or could it be doing so well because the value of the dollar is lessening and these are worth more dollars? What do I mean by that? When you go into the store and you buy bread, I would argue that bread now is much more expensive than back in 2018, 2019 before COVID. A lot of the reason for that is because of the rampant money supply, inflation, the increase in money supply, and that's going to increase the value of equities. But when the dollar is up, equities and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is going to go down because it's fighting against that dollar value. So of course, right now, Bitcoin is going to go down in this weird volatile time with the United States dollar because we really don't know what's happening here. We don't have M2 reports. Just to reiterate that, I'll show you that. M2 reports are the money stock reports. It's how much money is being printed into existence. And just to reiterate, our last M2 report was in September of 2021. They are no longer giving us M2 reports or producing how much money supply that they're actually printing. So at this point, we're kind of in the dark in terms of this inflation, and you can see exactly here what happened. You can see the March, that January-March peak where we just printed a bunch of money to prop up the economy through the CV encounter, or through everything that was happening. So obviously that's going to have an impact on the global money supply and everything else. But right now we're seeing the dollar go up. Right, so right now it's a little bit of a weird time, a little bit of a volatile time. I'm waiting for this dollar to start going down again, and then we'll most likely see Bitcoin break out. So right now it's just hard to see Bitcoin go up because we have the dollar pressing down on it. So there's a lot of other factors to go into play than just saying that, hey, that we're seeing this market peak. And just to put this in perspective, if we look back at 2017, actually in the DXY, and we did see, we actually saw the opposite. So through December, actually, I'm looking at December 16 or 17. Okay. Oh, that's actually... Okay, so actually we did see the opposite. In December 17, we did peak, but the dollar was on a decline already. So that was a natural decline for cryptocurrency, not reliant on the United States dollar, not worried about the United States dollar. The cryptocurrency was in an actual bubble, and we can call it a bubble territory. I know people throw around the word bubble, and I hate it as much as everyone else hates it. But ultimately, I think everyone can agree 2017 was a bubble, and we are probably heading for another bubble. There are bubbles all the time. I probably say the tech industry, in a lot of ways, maybe excluding some key stocks, right? I'm not lumping all the tech stocks in. I probably say Nvidia is one of my best investments in terms of actual stocks. But in terms of tech companies, I'd probably say we're in a bit of a bubble, right? A bit of this bubble because people are taking their extra capital and trying to invest it in some strong companies to keep their money safe, outbeat inflation, and progress with everything else. And they see the huge hype of tech stocks. As much as some tech stocks are very valuable in the future in terms of EV and everything else, I think there is a bit of an inflated bubble in that area. No, not a huge bubble. It's not to the scale of like 2008 housing crisis stuff or anything else like that. But we can easily say that 2017 cryptocurrency was a bubble. Can we say that right now for cryptocurrency is a bubble? And I think that's the more important question. Is cryptocurrency right now a bubble? And in my opinion, a $2.3 trillion market cap, roughly what, 1 trillion? Sorry, I'm just bouncing around between charts here. Roughly 1 trillion more than the market cap before in 2017. Where was that? 2017. Roughly 1.4, 1.5. Roughly 1.5, 1.6 billion more. So sure, we're like what, 100, almost 200%, basically 200% above. But I'm not that worried. I don't know. I'm not seeing this as being a dramatic increase from 2017 in terms of that market cap to tell us that we're in a bubble at this present moment. So we could absolutely develop into a bubble, and that's what I'm talking about in terms of a peak in 2022, going up to maybe that 100K Bitcoin price, and then could be in that bubble territory, that high euphoria territory, and then we could drop down. So there's a lot of different perspectives to look at it, though. Of course, there's a lot of people that are saying that, hey, we are about to go right down to 30K and sub 30K. I've even seen some people say that we're looking at a sub 10K Bitcoin, which I think is utterly ridiculous, but, you know, people can have their opinions. So just to recap, you know, against the value of the dollar, right? Against the value of the dollar, because if the dollar price goes up, asset prices are going to go down, which is why the stock market is currently down slightly and why cryptocurrency is also suffering. And crypto will suffer way more to the dollar because of the low market cap. And I know 2.3 billion seems like a lot, or 2.3 trillion, excuse me, seems like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. It really isn't. So there's a lot of different ways that you can process that information and how that impacts. Sorry, I'm looking for my coffee. But ultimately, I do think in terms of the grand scheme of things, we're most likely going to be looking at a market peak into 2022. And again, that could be as late as even by end of year 2022. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we could see a market peak that late. I know a lot of people wouldn't like to hear that as much, but you know, cryptocurrency is going to essentially do what it's going to do, especially in this kind of economic limbo or purgatory that we find ourselves in, where we're, you know, either on the barrel of hyperinflation or we're just simply at the cusp of a new recession, however you want to cut it. You know, we can definitely see a downcline coming for the economy, whether that be because of new variants coming out or whether that be because of new policies, money printing, or anything else. There's a lot of different factors here, and the economy is not a simple thing. We have a lot of things with interest rates that are going to dramatically impact normal people, especially the housing market in Canada. We see a constant interest rate talk about the interest going up and how Canada has essentially gobbled up mortgages throughout the pandemic. And now we're looking at, okay, how do we recover from this pandemic that obviously isn't going away in any viable capacity? How are we going to continue? Well, obviously something has to happen with the money supply, and something has to happen with interest rates, meaning interest rates most likely have to go up, and that could impact people that have bought homes and everything else in the economy. So ultimately, in terms of the economy, we could be looking at some rough months to years coming up. But I guess we will take everything as it comes and see how it goes. But I think ultimately that should be bullish for cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. We do see Ethereum holding a lot of its value right now. Ethereum is currently at 39,000 or 3,957. And really, we're not that far off of where we say peaked in May, and we're not that far off where we kind of retested back in September. And we're kind of retesting whether or not we have support here. Now, this is going to be heavily dependent on what Bitcoin does. So if Bitcoin drops down, Ethereum's going to drop down. There's no way to cut it. Eventually, Ethereum might lose some support here, but it's holding pretty well. And I'd probably say this looks way more like a consolidation than an extended drop. So I'd say for me, Ethereum is still working with a lot of health in this market, even considering how low Bitcoin is, considering how low some altcoins like XRP, Cardano being one that I know a lot of people are freaked out being this low and retesting these lines of support down here. There's a lot of things in the market that still shows us that there is life, and we just have to hold through this dip and buy some tokens that we are bullish on in the long run. We know that ultimately these tokens aren't going away. These crypto projects aren't going away. They're going to be here for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Well, who knows? That I guess is that's debatable. I guess what I should say, they're going to be here at least until the next market cycle. Some of them might be gone. Some of them might have changed in capacity. But most of these projects that we look into here, say Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano, Bitcoin, a lot of these projects are most likely going to last a lot longer than, say, Titscoin, right? There's more viability in these tokens than other tokens. We see, say, the Dogecoin community hop to different meme coins, being Shiba Inu, Satama, and a bunch of others. There's not longevity there, and we could say that's because of the developers on those projects, whatever it may be, right? We know that Elon Musk is helping Dogecoin, but ultimately everyone had already moved to Shiba Inu before anything dramatic happened with Dogecoin. So things like that can happen, and we can see losers in this market, and we can pick losers. But it's important to identify which ones can stand the test of time based on investment value and mathematics, and Bitcoin and Ethereum are two of the solid ones that you can get. That's the ones that most investment firms look into when they're looking at investing in cryptocurrency. And also you have issuers like BlackRock, one of the biggest investment firms in the world. They own, if you look at how much BlackRock owns, they own literally the world. I wish I could put this into scope. Well, BlackRock is invested in like Cardano and a bunch of other tokens. And I don't see BlackRock liquidating entire positions. Now they have before exited positions because of regulatory frameworks or something else. But right now they're not panicking, and I see much more institutional push to bring cryptocurrency into balance sheets for most companies and areas. Now, this is important to recognize because Bitcoin's been declared dead a lot of times in terms of how much I have been in cryptocurrency. Now, I suffered through some of the worst drops in terms of the March capitulation when the virus was announced. I always say it like it was this thing that it was announced and celebrated. No. So when that was announced, the market tumbled. Bitcoin hit 4K. Everyone thought Bitcoin was gone. I mean, everyone thought Bitcoin was gone after 2017. people will consistently say Bitcoin's dead. Even if we are looking at the worst case scenario, even if we are at a market peak right now, we know at the end of the day, Bitcoin over time is going to end at a higher price if we hold, right? If we hold long term, it's not going to be a problem. And a lot of people should have those more long-term prospects in their vision. Again, we're looking at generating wealth over time. And that does come into play by holding long-term on certain assets that you're bullish on that can go that distance, go that long-term. Again, that's what made Warren Buffett so rich. And the stock market, he literally says the stock market transfers wealth from the impatient to the patient. The same premise happens in cryptocurrency. You just have to pick the winners and pick the tokens that are going to stand the test of time. And if you want less risk, you go more Bitcoin, more Ethereum. If you want more risk, you go more altcoins like I have. Now, of course, altcoins are down. I'm still not stressing in any dramatic capacity. Now, I did enter cryptocurrency in 2020, so my prices are a little bit lower of entry than people entering now. But I'd probably say the thesis still remains the same, even though Bitcoin is this extended, right? Even though we are this high in the chart, I wouldn't say it's extended. But ultimately, people are always going to echo the sentiment that Bitcoin is down, especially when we have the December kind of area. We have Christmas and everything else. Everyone's trying to get ready for the holidays. And they just constantly are shrouded with this crypto looming that it keeps dropping lower and lower, and they're worried about their investment and what's going to happen. I can say with some sort of confidence that your investment isn't going to be liquidated tomorrow, right? Unless you're leveraging something, which you shouldn't be leveraging, unless you know what you're doing and leveraging with a small amount. But ultimately, if you hold, say, one Bitcoin, your one Bitcoin is always going to be worth that one Bitcoin, and it's not going to just go away. You're not going to lose that one Bitcoin. And over the course of 4 years, that one Bitcoin is going to be worth dramatically more. So again, just keep that in perspective, because every 4 years, Bitcoin, if you look back at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is dramatically more than what it was 4 years ago. So if you are just buying at peaks, sure, you're making a much less income, but these peaks are to get you into cryptocurrency so you can accumulate through the bear markets, right? So right now, arguably, anyone that's bought here, I would probably say if you came into the market and expected to make a fortune, it's not going to happen. But if you're here through the bear markets, through the multi-year bear markets, and everyone's calling you crazy for putting money into cryptocurrency, if you're here for the multi-year bear markets, this is where you make the money, right? Down here, not up there. So it's a very important perspective to get in your head, especially when you're looking at investing long term and where Bitcoin and crypto can go. So ultimately, I look at these dips as buying opportunities for certain tokens. And again, I'm not really buying a lot of tokens in terms of like Cardano at this point. I'm more buying tokens that I have a less position in. And a lot of these tokens too, like I remember buying VeChain at 0.5 cent. It's hard to justify myself buying some of these tokens at prices that they're at currently, which is why I build up positions in tokens that I don't have. So I don't have a lot of Solana like some other people. I buy a little bit of Solana here and there. I do add to my Polkadot stance, because I mean, a $25 dot, I can't say no to a $25 dot. But at the same time, I was buying DOT and accumulating DOT throughout this area here. Every paycheck, I'd buy a little bit of DOT, and that's what happened. And you know what? A couple $100 or whatever it was turned into a couple of thousand, and then was able to get reinvested in other areas, call it crowd loan, still generating an interest in the stake pools. So I'm earning on that money, and that money is compounded up. So it's dramatic how much wealth can be generated from the bear market. So I'd probably be more excited if one was coming. But again, I don't think that we're like knocking on the door of market drop, bear market. So You'll know that I'm wrong if we break down below the sub 30K mark, even by a little bit, and even for a couple of days, right? So you'll know I'm wrong if we break that low and break down there for, say, maybe a week or two. Now we do have things like a death cross coming up, so we'll see what happens. But you know, we've broken out of death crosses before, so you know, I'm not particularly worried, especially since I echoed that statement that Raul Paulo had mentioned, that most likely people are going to emotionally sell off in December anyway, because they're looking back, just as coincidence that December 2017 was a drop off, and it most certainly will drop off again because of the timing. So that most likely people are going to sell off just because of that. And ultimately, I think that's a flawed theory. So again, people have always said the sentiment that Bitcoin has died, and I think this is only going to increase the more and more people that actually buy Bitcoin. I remember one of my friends talking to me when I was investing in Bitcoin. I was investing down here in this area again. So when I think around here, around the August to June area, so Bitcoin's at like roughly $12,000. He had said that he had bought at 19,000 and then sold at 14,000 when he was losing his shirt on it. And he said, crypto's a scam, Bitcoin's a scam, it's all a Ponzi, don't get into it. I tried to explain to him the mathematics of everything because I understood at least that front. Sorry, bear with me here a moment. So I understood that front, and then I asked him, I'm like, why do you think that? Why do you think that crypto's a scam? And he told me, he's like, well, I bought it at 19,000 and dropped to 14,000 and just went down to like 3K. If I had held, I would have lost all my money. And I would probably say that when you're buying in such a high feverish standpoint, when you're buying so high, you should be ready to lose 80% of the value, right? So, yeah, I would say now, well, we've talked since then, and he has said that, hey, okay, you're right about that Bitcoin stuff. I don't know how he would feel now if he was in Bitcoin. I have no idea. But I would suspect he'd be feeling pretty bearish right now, because I suspect a lot of people just feel pretty bearish with how Bitcoin is presented over the last couple of days. So Elon Musk is stepping into crypto politics slash whatever you want to call it. I would hope now, at least now, that people look at Elon Musk with a different kind of lens. Now, I don't want to take away from what Elon Musk has done in terms of SpaceX or Tesla. I think ultimately they're amazing organizations doing great things in terms of space exploration and EV vehicles. But we can probably agree that Elon Musk, while being a very intelligent individual, is not very smart, right? There's a difference here between intelligence and being smart. I'd probably say Elon Musk isn't very smart. He has a lot of opinions about a lot of things that I don't really care about. I mean, he can make claims all he wants, but he's been in trouble with the SEC multiple times. Again, some of them have been frivolous. You guys know that I feel that way, that Elon Musk shouldn't have been attacked by the SEC, at least for the 420 comment. But there's a lot of questionable things that Elon Musk does over the years. So as much as, you know, he's very smart, I guess, or very intelligent, he's not very smart, and he should probably just stay out of the political sphere in terms of cryptocurrencies. But also, I'd probably say that right now, in terms of politics and in terms of regulations, cryptocurrencies are really lacking. We don't have a good framework in the government. I watched a blockchain Congress meeting, I think it was a couple of days ago, that I watched it, and it essentially was talking about these exact issues, that, you know, we don't understand cryptocurrency and we have to make a choice. And I say we, I'm obviously Canadian, but, you know, it is what it is. We have to make a choice whether or not to help cryptocurrency flourish, help the technology flourish, and accept this new layer of the internet, because that's truly what the blockchain is. It's a new layer of the internet, and accept this new layer and this new technology, or completely reject it and let it grow overseas. Let it grow in another area, on another country, overseas, and then later adopt it. This is things that China has done. They try to get rid of the internet in a huge capacity, and eventually they realized that they couldn't, and then eventually they actually found a way to make their internet instead of the global internet. So China has found a way around it, and they're finding a way around the blockchain, making the internal blockchain, right, doing the digital yuan. But the US has a dramatic choice here to make, whether or not we're going to foster cryptocurrency within the country, or if we are going to legislate against cryptocurrency and investing in cryptocurrency and pushing it further out. Now, the US has a couple of different options in terms of they can make investing in cryptocurrency something that only accredited investors will do, which means only rich people essentially can invest in cryptocurrency, which is to protect, in their opinion, protect the little man. Now, as much as this is great, last I checked, America was America. And in America, any man has as much right to fail as much as they do to prosper, which means that people should be able to make their own investment strategies and be able to invest how they want to invest. And you can do things like having safe products, right? Like safe mutual funds of cryptocurrency, safe investment tools for the people that don't know what they're doing. But for the average person, you should be allowed to invest in whatever the hell you want to invest in. So I think that's the position that the United States needs to clarify, whether or not they're going to foster crypto innovation within the country, or whether or not they're going to be left behind, right? And left behind, say, other areas, right? We have Singapore being a huge adopter of the blockchain. We have a lot of things. Even Canada is making a lot of strides to move into the blockchain world. China obviously has the digital yuan. We have Africa being pushed by likes of Cardano and a bunch of other blockchains to work to bring blockchain infrastructure into the African countries. I think mainly South African countries. And there's a lot of value of having cryptocurrency in the world. We've seen a lot of destabilization of a lot of different currencies over even just COVID. If we look right now, the Turkish Lira, the Turkish Lira is on a huge decline. So if we take a look at the Turkish Lira now, this is consistently, and this I don't know how generally people think. This should be scary, right? We have, in my lifetime, we've seen multiple currency collapses. Two notable that I can think of off the top of my head is the Lebanese dollar and the Venezuelan dollar. Now we're here, and sorry, I have this set to Canadian dollars. Let me change this to American. And if you didn't know, I am Canadian, but United. There we go. So consistently, much lower, consistently going down. And this is pretty rapid now. So everything's kind of picked up, and this is due to hyperinflation. This is due to rampant printing of the Turkish lira, which is soaring down. So people in Turkey are finding refuge in buying as much American dollars as they possibly can, because that's always what they've known to be safe, always. Whether or not they know the ramifications of rampant money printing from the Federal Reserve, whether or not they understand the consequences of what Jerome Powell and the transitory inflation crew is doing, whether or not they understand all of that, at the end of the day, they rush to a currency that they know is safe, or they think is safe. But a lot of others are rushing to cryptocurrencies, being Bitcoin and a lot of others. So they're trying to get out of their Turkish lira and going to other cryptocurrencies. So I'm not cutting my losses. Think of it this way: if a token drops to $2.50 to $2, there's that's nothing, and still the same as what Bitcoin does. Yeah, exactly. So it's a very good point, because at the end of the day, if you look at the chart, how much are we really down, right? So if we look at where Bitcoin is right now, how much are we really down? If we're going to cut our losses, we're only down 33%. I mean, we've seen drops worse than 33%. One very notably, after the Wyckoff distribution here, we saw that huge drop all the way down, almost 50%. 50%. If you go down to the wick, right? But over time, right, if you're looking at this from an over time perspective and over, say, a year to 2 years, you're going to make money as long as you dollar cost average and buy the dips. And you're not selling and getting rid of your position on a dip because of fear. Really try to take fear out of this and try to make your decisions based purely on strategy, rather than like, okay, well, everything's dropping and I'm really concerned about my investment and it's Christmas and, you know, I'm trying to pay for everything and, you know, everything's getting a little bit much because, you know, the holiday season. Should I sell some of this cryptocurrency that just keeps going down? Yeah, which choice are you going to make? I would probably say the best thing that you could do is hold. That's just me. That's my personal stance on everything, though. Obviously, you got to make what decision is best for you. So we have currencies going down in the world. We have, again, the Turkish Lira, the Venezuelan dollar. We have a lot of push for cryptocurrencies and a lot of need, especially now in 2020, why we need cryptocurrencies. Solana, one token that I'm hugely bullish on, another push into the kind of Web3 gaming sphere, which is why I'm like really liking Solana. They're really making a push for the Web3 gaming scene, which is nice. There's Star Atlas and a couple other projects that are coming through that are looking pretty good. So another reason why I kind of accumulate Solana now, and me being a more later adopter of Solana. This might be it. Yeah, and I think the big thing, Troy, because I think you're right in a lot of ways, and I think Raul Powell says the exact same thing, is that most likely we're probably going to see the upswing happen in Q1. We're going to see a push down, and again, I've reiterated this a couple of times. We'll see a push down on Bitcoin, right? We have things that you guys got to keep in mind, right? Because we have the stock supply of Bitcoin. So again, the exchanges, stock supply Bitcoin. Let me just bring up the chart so I can show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Exchanges. There we go. So we have the stock supply of Bitcoin. While I look for a chart here, we have the stock supply of Bitcoin going down. So the amount of Bitcoin in exchanges is lessening and lessening. We know that the halving is going to be coming up in a couple of years. And ultimately, we know that right now, Bitcoin's price is continuously going down. But what happens when the stock supply is so low and the price gets so low that at some point, people are rushing to buy? And maybe not me and you. Maybe it's more savvy investors, and by savvy investors I mean hedge funds with 40 different analysts talking about the risk to reward ratio of what Bitcoin should be. And maybe they see Bitcoin at, say, $30,000 as a really good investment, and at that point they want to really buy. Let's say through the next 2 weeks we see a dramatic capitulation. We see Bitcoin go all the way down to that 30K mark. People sell, right? You sell right here. You're selling your cryptocurrency, say at $36,000. You're kicking yourself. You're like, oh well, why did I hold on to this? I'm gonna get out of here for the sake of my investment. I'm gonna get out of here and relieve some of the stress. Bitcoin drops down to 30K. You're like, well, I'm really glad that I got out of there. And then Q1 picks up. A bunch of investors buy at 30K. The stock supply is down on exchanges, which pushes the price up because of the demand for cryptocurrency, and then boom, you're going back up, pushing through levels, and then continuing onto a market cycle. This is exactly the sentiment that Raul Powell has mentioned, where we could see that dramatic, more emotional sell-off go down, maybe to a low price. Now, 30K is probably exaggerated in my opinion, but I mean, anything's possible. And then having the stock supply going so low could push the price up. Now, again, a couple of things to keep in mention. The volume is still really low, right? So as much as the volume shows indecision when the price is high, right? So we talked about that before. Volume, when the volume is low, that shows indecision in the market, even when the price is high. So even though the price is high, right? So up here, price is in all-time highs. Bitcoin's getting at new points. The volume is ultimately at lows, right? So it's not nearly as much as volume as here and here, right? How we had back here. We see the volume kind of push up the price and everything else. And then we see a lack of volume, which instigated our drop, which came with a lot of volume for the sell-off, but ultimately we lowered into this volume kind of vacuum. So we don't have a lot of volume going on right now with cryptocurrency. So I think right now everything's just kind of consolidating. As much as it looks like it's dropping down, I think we're more doing a consolidation motion than something like a drop down to a new bear market. So that I guess that's my opinion on that front, at least. When you look at different identifiers to identify whether or not this is the market peak, how much further we could drop down, and everything else. And again, we have a lot of reasons why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency should go up. We've talked about things that are keeping Bitcoin down right now, like the value of the dollar, for example. If the value of the dollar is up, assets like cryptocurrency, like cryptocurrency and like the stock market, like the Dow and everything else, are going to be down, right? So again, when the dollar is up, assets are down because the value is down against the dollar, ultimately. So it's very important sometimes to keep that in perspective. I know a lot of people have been freaking out about this Bitcoin stuff. I know a lot of people have been looking at this and been pretty scared about their investment. And I tried to really state in a lot of videos in November that we could see a dramatic push down in December. This, to me, is just happening as predicted and as expected. And most likely, if everything works out the way that I think it's going to work out, we're going to kick off Q1 at least in an uptrend. Maybe not a dramatic uptrend, but I mean, it could be. But I'd probably say Q1 is going to be in an uptrend and then peak out into sometime in 2022. Yeah, I think everyone has to have that perspective, because we're all here to, at the end of the day, I think everyone can agree that we are all here to make some money. So Troy makes a good point. I'm disappointed like everyone else. I was hoping for a not lifestyle change, but something that would benefit, right? So I would probably echo the exact same thing. I would probably have liked to be able to, in this position, at this point in the market cycle, I would probably have liked to be able to sell some of my cryptocurrency, offload into other investments, say max out my retirement investments, max out my tax-free vehicles, maybe put a down payment on a house. Right now, that's not going to happen because of house prices. Even if I had, well, I do have the down payment, but I wouldn't, I can't. There's no way that in this market I can enter the housing market. It's not happening. I wouldn't do it, because who knows what's going to happen in the next year or so. I could be Chicken Little, who knows? But I'm a little skeptical of stepping into a market when everything's going 100K above asking price. Just doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of things that I would have liked to have happen by this point, but it just doesn't happen. Well, it's not happening yet. This game is about patience. It's just like the stock market. So we really have to look at fundamentals, look at why we're invested in these assets, and then stand true to that. And if you don't want to stand true to that, you could be missing a good opportunity here at some serious wealth generation. I've talked about it a lot that Bitcoin now is at 47K. Imagine what Bitcoin's going to be when you're dead. I know that sounds a little bit morbid, but if you plan to have kids and you want to give a legacy off, what's Bitcoin going to be at in 100 years? You're going to be dead, but what's going to happen there? Mathematics show that Bitcoin is going to be at a dramatically higher price in 100 years than it is now. So really, holding even creates generational wealth. And I'm not saying don't take profits, but what I am saying is there is a time to hold and there is a time to sell. And I'd probably say when the market is down is not the time to not the time to sell. It is the time to hold. So isn't a better investment prospect out there? And I'll probably echo the same statement. I don't think there is a better investment tool or prospect out there. We see even like houses right now in Canada obviously being a huge speculative market. Tech stocks are doing very well too. You could probably say that. I think Tesla has done a similar move to Bitcoin, but none has done as much as Bitcoin has. And that, again, is because of mathematics. And I say this a lot with people, and I don't think it really hits home with some people because it's hard to envision this. But $2.3 trillion is not a lot of money, right? The stock market is $120 trillion. This is not even close, right? This is barely 1.5%, 2% of the stock market, barely. So when you take that in perspective, and right now the amount of people in Bitcoin, watch what happens when this technology is global, because we know this is Web3, this is the next layer of the internet. We know that this is going to enhance what we have today, right? We know that this is going to be adopted in some capacity. Sure, some things might not work the same way. Some things might not be up at these levels. Some things might not be around, right? We might see some tokens just not be a thing. We saw that back in 2017. Some projects are going to fail. We saw that in .com. Some companies failed, but some companies turned into Amazon, right? So just put that in perspective. There's a lot here to take into play, and there's a lot to go through. Pass it along, borrow against it. Yeah, exactly. It'll be like owning a New York City apartment building. I completely agree. It's in that level, in that realm. And the big thing here is scarcity and the fact that you can't print more. I know I've said this in a previous live stream, and people laugh sometimes when I say this. We can mine more gold, right? We can always mine more gold. I agree there's a finite amount of gold in the universe, but there's a lot of it, right? There is only ever 21 million Bitcoin. Only ever 21 million. You cannot ever have more. And that will be mined out sometime in the 2100s, right? Only ever 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence, ever. That's it. And that's a hard cap. It can never be increased. Unless the coders agree in that, which I highly doubt that that's going to happen. A deflationary asset, because Bitcoin are going to be lost, Bitcoin are going to leave the system in some capacity, whether that be in the landfill or what. A deflationary system with no capability of printing more is going to dramatically increase in value over time because of the scarcity and rarity of that thing. The same thing can be applied to things like collectible items. If you look at like Holo Charizards or whatever it may be that has a limited edition print, those items increase in value dramatically over time. The same thing is going to happen with Bitcoin. This is how the asset works, and this is why the asset is so good, but it's not something that I think people completely understand just yet. So it's a little weird in that capacity. But I think people really need to look at the appreciation of Bitcoin over the next generations as something that you should be looking at investing for. So that's why I kind of get weirded out when some people say, oh, like, right now is it the time to just sell everything, or is it time to put 20K into cryptocurrency? Is that something that I have to do right now? And I argue that no, you don't have to do this right now. It's something that you have to do gradually over time, and then you can take profits or borrow against it to fund your lifestyle and do whatever you need to do. So yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for chiming in with a lot of the questions, and the sentiment is really good. Do I think many cryptos won't have a huge run? There are thousands of tokens via last time and more places. Yeah, I think in general, all boats will rise as the market cap rises. So if the cryptocurrency market cap in total rises to 10 trillion, I think the majority of projects will rise. And unfortunately, that's going to include a lot of the bullshit projects, a lot of the Ponzi schemes, a lot of the rug pulls. I think it's going to happen just like how .com happened, in terms of any company with .com in the name was doing well in terms of the stock price, and that's only because of human emotion. It has nothing to do with the fundamentals of the project. So yeah, I think a lot of projects, even the shitty ones, are going to increase, and maybe there's going to be like a few fringe ones that don't really do anything. That's probably going to be true, but I think probably a good 70% of tokens will most likely have at least a 30% rise, if not somewhere in the thousands of percents. But I think ultimately my investment strategy is more to look at the longevity of certain projects and invest in projects that I think that I'm betting on, that I'm expecting that are going to be in the space for longer than say 5 years. I probably say that that's my perspective. Or my opinion on it. So like, you know, things like ADA don't really concern me at all in terms of like where it could be. Now, of course, they had the falling out with the planned deal. I can't remember which country, whether it was Ethiopia or another country that they were working with. Something fell through. I don't know exactly what it was. Something big that Charles wanted to announce. But there's still a lot of things happening with Cardano. There's still a lot of good things that are happening with the network. Do I see that it's going to be around in the next 10 to 15 years? Yeah, I think so. And I think it's going to rise with the market cycle. But I also think things like SafeMoon will rise with the market cycle. Now, I think last time I talked about SafeMoon, someone got a little salty with me, but that's okay. I mean, my opinion is my opinion, and that's just it. I'm not an investment advisor or anything, but in my opinion, SafeMoon, it works like a Ponzi scheme with how the tokens are distributed and how everything works. I see it as a Ponzi. But that being said, it will increase, right? It will increase like many other meme tokens and many other things. And I don't even think, I think even meme tokens have value, have inherent value. We've talked before on the channel how Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, the real meme about these tokens is they're actually harder assets than the United States dollar. Because the United States dollar has something like $300 trillion in circulation. There's only one node, which is the Federal Reserve. They don't have to report to you how many tokens they print into existence. When you look at the United States dollar in the same framework that you look at cryptocurrencies, you start to recognize that, hey, maybe the real Ponzi is what I'm getting paid in every week, right? Same thing goes for Canada here. Obviously, I get paid in Canadian dollars, but the exact same thing. Our governments are rampantly printing money. I know a good portion of my viewers are Canadian, but it's something to keep in mind and keep in perspective. So just to recap a couple of things. Obviously, Bitcoin's down. The DXY, the dollar is up, right? And as the dollar is up, assets like the Dow, right? So like the stock market, like the S&P 500, like equities, like Bitcoin being an asset, like cryptocurrencies are going to be down because the value of the dollar is up, which means assets go down against the dollar, right? Unless assets are moving up in tandem with the dollar, which doesn't typically happen. So usually if the dollar is up, this is going to push assets down, and that's going to cause prices to go down for Bitcoin and everything else. Obviously, Bitcoin is struggling with this. We have the December sell-off that we've talked about a lot on the channel. Raoul Powell's sentiment was the exact same thing, that people are going to look at December being back in 2017 and think, hey, Bitcoin's going to go down. But most likely, we're going to see an uptrend early into 2022. So I do think the new year will come with green candles. I don't think that we're going to go much further down into January. I mean, we could, but I ultimately think the new year will kind of spark something within cryptocurrency, but it might also spark something within legacy markets. So we'll see there. Yeah, while I'm in micros under 300 million, and I'm in some micros under 300 million myself, one being PokeSwap, BPro, a bunch. I probably say at least have 15 tokens under the 300 million mark. But while I'm in micros under 300 million, only going with blockchain and solid projects. Exactly. So like the bulk of my portfolio is high cap, right? High market cap tokens, absolutely. But ultimately, the tokens that I do go down below, say 300 million, I'm probably looking at more solid projects that I think are going to stand the test of time, right? And that's what you should be looking at with those tokens. You could miss out on gains, right? This is something to not be afraid of. Don't be afraid of missing out on some gains on a hype train that you just don't understand, right? Diversify enough, right? Diversify enough that you're going to catch the market going up, but you don't need to get into every project that people shill to you. especially the ones that are questionable, right? But definitely look at the solid ones, look at the white papers, and understand, just look at yourself and think as a VC, a venture capitalist, right? So put that investment hat on and say, could this token be of value in the next 5 years? And that's how I would look at it. Ultimately, that's how you should look at things like business and everything else. But the same applies here with picking cryptocurrencies that are going to do well in this market. So just wrapping up, just to kind of loop everything off. So Polkadot has launched the parachains. So we are having the Polkadot parachains coming out. So we have Akala, Moonbeam, Parallel Finance, which I've never heard of. Asar, Clover are the first to launch on this network. And then the next auction comes up December 23rd. So we'll be watching the next auction. I don't know if I'm going to be entering anything in the next auction, but we'll see which projects are up. But most likely we are going to see Akala in the next couple of days. Now I have gone to Akala and played around a little bit with Akala. Sorry, I'm not looking at the right page. Bear with me here. Akala. So when you go to Akala, you can try it with a test net right now. So they don't have the live network, so you can hit try app. And you can follow the instructions up here to get test tokens sent to your address. Nothing's going to show here of what you deposited, so don't go here looking to check your wallet. You still have to go to the same place to check your wallet, being check your rewards and search up your code. But on here, you'll be able to go ahead, get your test tokens, play around with test to call it test dot to learn certain things. You can stake your Polkadot for 16% rates. You can increase liquidity. I don't know right now why the site's not working, but you know, they're not even live yet, so we'll give them a break on this one. But there are things to keep in mind over the next couple of days. I'll be keeping you up to date as soon as Akala is live. I'll definitely be setting some of my positions there. So if you have Akala, wait out for that video, and I'll be showing you exactly how I'm going to be putting in liquidity and how I'm going to be staking any additional dot. And then we'll go through. I would recommend that you don't follow exactly what I do in terms of picking the same picks that I'd pick. Unless you are thinking that they're also viable in the project. Most likely I'll probably just add liquidity for Polkadot and Akala, but I could add liquidity for some potential other tokens depending. So but again, to reiterate, Bitcoin is at 47,000, give or take, just under 47,000. I'm not too worried, and again, we are in a sweet spot. We're in a good holding zone of above 42,000, below 52,000. We did get rejected at the 52,000 roughly a week ago, and we would look to see above 52,000 to be bullish again. So we haven't had that much time above that mark here. We did talk about it. We did go up with some sort of force, but again, we came down with some sort of force. So now we have to make our way back up above 52,000, then we can expect to be a little bit more bullish. I think that's it. I'm gonna go clear my nose and breathe a little bit here. Expect definitely some more videos throughout the holiday season, and also expect more live streams. I'll be going live a couple of times because I have vacation from work, so I won't. I'll just be home. I'm gonna be working on a studio, getting a studio prepared. A studio being painting a room and kind of dolling things up over time. So I will be working at that, and there's a lot of things to come into 2022 for the channel. I'm expecting great things for cryptocurrency, and I want to be here and watch a ride. And I think I think I can bring a good amount of perspective to people in the space. So again, I'm really happy with all the support that you guys give me. It's amazing. You guys are a huge driving factor in why I even make these videos or why I even stream. So sorry about the hiatus over the last week, but I feel much better, and I'm ready to tackle the new year, and I hope you guys are too. All right, everyone, I hope everyone enjoys the weekend, and I'll check you guys later on, but I'll most likely have a video out sometime this weekend and then into next week. All right, see you guys.